parents favored my twin sister so much that they blew my wedding fund on her, so I cut them off after rejecting mom's selfish demand. I, 23F, have a twin sister, Allison, who I'm not on good terms with. Scratch that, I'm not even on speaking terms with her and neither with my parents. We used to be at least on talking terms, in spite of the way I've been treated in the past, but for the last 2 years, I've kept my distance and they hadn't bothered to reach out to me either until recently. Allison is 12 minutes older than me and by default the golden child because she's older. My parents only wanted one kid because that's what they had planned for and they didn't have the means to raise two, but by the time they found out, it was too late and mom didn't want to risk anything. I found out about this around the time I was in high school, from my drunk uncle at a Thanksgiving party, and that was pretty much the day I stopped trying to win my parents over. They'd done the most natural thing somebody in those circumstances could do, gave birth to 2 kids, and decided that only one of them would be loved. That happened to be Allison and not me. Right from when we were kids, the sibling rivalry between me and Allison was insane. Everything she could do, I'd try to do better just to impress our parents, but they just seemed to hate me more for outdoing their golden child. And I'll be honest, Allison really wasn't interested in being better than me, she just wanted people to validate her so she'd pretend she cared about the competition we had going on. I'll admit that she was good at manipulation and making people believe that she actually felt hurt when I do things better, which led to a lot of people validating her feelings and putting me down to make her feel better. These people included my parents, a couple of our relatives, and even some people from high school. So to conclude, what I got out of the competition was good grades and lots of co-curricular so I could be better than my sister, and what she got out of this was my parents and other people's attention, validation, and sympathy because I was clearly the bad guy for making her feel less. Looking back, I don't think I would trade that, but I sure would like to rub it in her face more than I had at the time. Then 2 years ago, we celebrated our 21st birthday. Both of us had graduated by then. She'd graduated from a regular college, but I'd graduated from one of the top business schools in the state. Not only that, I'd also been the valedictorian and had also been on a scholarship, which meant that my parents had saved quite a lot on my education and called me crazy, but I actually expected my parents to be happy about it. They weren't and only paid attention to Allison and her future because she had barely scraped by. Both of us had moved back home, but while I was working from home at a firm as an intern already, Allison was still looking for jobs and getting rejected left and right. My parents cared more about that and hadn't even bothered to congratulate me or anything. I couldn't say I was surprised, but I sure was disappointed. I tried to hide it because at the time, I was still living with my parents and hadn't saved up enough to move out yet, so I decided I'd just keep my mouth shut about my feelings. But after our 21st birthday, I just couldn't anymore. I expected them to do something big for us, but the day before our birthday, I discovered that everyone had left me home alone and all that they'd left for me was a note that said they were heading to the beach with Allison and her friends and would be back after a couple of days. I still remember being absolutely shattered when I read that note because they'd taken Allison and her friends on a beach trip while all I got was a happy birthday note and a $50 gift card. A lot of things had been unfair about my childhood, but that was where I drew the line. It was just so hugely disappointing and heartless of them that I decided to move out that day and never look back. I had a couple of friends who were willing to let me stay with them until I found a place of my own and could afford it, which wouldn't take long because the firm I was interning at was probably going to hire me after the internship was over. So I just needed a place to live for 2 months at most. I packed my stuff and moved in with a friend of mine without telling my parents or sister and haven't looked back even once. Neither did they miss me enough to ask me to come back. They did call me on my birthday, the day after I moved out, but not to wish me. They wanted to tell me that they'd be back soon and said that I should probably get a plumber to get the tap fixed. I told them that I wasn't living at home anymore and that I'd moved out, thinking that at least that information would get a reaction out of them, but with no such luck. My parents seemed alright with it and Allison didn't care. So that was it. That was the last time I had a proper conversation with my family. Since then, I haven't gone back to see them, and neither have I heard from them. I did hear about Allison sometimes from my friends a couple of times and that's how I stayed updated on her life, but that's about it. They didn't know anything about my parents and my parents didn't know anything about me. I've worked hard over the past 2 years and now, I have a place of my own. It's not a mansion, but it's a nice apartment in a good neighborhood. The rent is affordable with my income, which is great because most people my age haven't been able to get here so quickly. I'm happy with how my life has turned out and have tried my best to keep my family out of my head. I know that Allison got married a couple of months ago to some businessman almost 10 years older than her and is now living it up in California.